Imagine someone asks you a question. You answer it, fully, honestly, without hesitation. It feels like the right thing to do. It feels like integrity. And then, in the moment after, something shifts. You cannot name it, but you can feel it. You have given something away that you did not intend to give, and you will not understand what it was until it is already being used. Niccolò Machiavelli watched this happen throughout his career, not on battlefields, but at dinner tables, in council chambers, in the small, warm, apparently casual conversations that preceded the most significant transfers of power he ever witnessed. He noticed that the people who fell rarely fell because they were attacked directly. They fell because they were asked the right question at the right moment by the right person, and they answered it completely, honestly, and without pausing, because it felt safe. This is what he described in The Prince, chapter 18, when he wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you. The surface of a conversation, its warmth, its apparent honesty, its friendly tone is what most people evaluate. Few ever reach the mechanism underneath, and the mechanism is always the same. The question is not asking for information. It is opening a negotiating table. And you did not know you were negotiating. Most people have been trained from childhood to answer every question that comes their way. A teacher asks, you answer. A parent asks, you answer. An authority figure asks, you comply. That training shapes something important. The instinct that refusing to answer is itself a kind of wrongdoing. That the open, honest, immediate response is always the virtuous one. Machiavelli would look at that instinct and identify it as the first and most exploitable vulnerability a person carries. Not because honesty is wrong, but because honesty deployed automatically, without reading the table you have just sat down at, is not integrity. It is compliance dressed as integrity. And compliance and integrity are not the same thing. By the end of this, you will understand the mechanism by which 5 specific questions extract something you never intended to offer. You will see the deeper pattern they all share, and you will discover the one question that makes the other 4 possible. The master question that once answered opens every other door. The question is never just a question. It is an offer, and you are always allowed to decline. Part 1. The opening move. The question that sounds like courtesy is the one that costs the most. Every question opens a negotiating table. The critical variable is whether you know you are sitting at one. The person who knows they are negotiating arrives with their position considered. They evaluate what is being asked and what the asking reveals about the asker's position. They decide what to offer, what to withhold, and what the cost of each response might be. They are playing the game with their eyes open. The person who does not know they are negotiating answers immediately, fully, and honestly, because they believe the question is simply a question, and in that belief, they have already conceded the most important thing, the opening position. They have let the other person set the terms, define the frame, and establish what kind of conversation this is going to be. By the time they understand what happened, the exchange is already over. Machiavelli identified 2 questions that operate this way with particular consistency. The first is the retroactive permission trap. Someone does something that affects you, makes a decision without consulting you, shares something private, volunteers your time or your name. And after the action is already taken, they look at you and ask, "You don't mind, right?" Stop. Listen to the architecture of that question. It is not asking for your permission. The decision is made. The action is done. The question is a notification dressed as a request, engineered so that disagreement makes you look difficult, petty, and unreasonable. The expected answer is already built into the wording, and most people give it because signing off feels easier than the social cost of saying, "Actually, I do mind." But here is what Machiavelli understood about what that signing off actually communicates. The person who acted first and asked second has just learned something extremely useful about you. They have learned that they can act first and get your approval afterward, that the process works, that you can be moved through the manufacturing of consent rather than the seeking of it, and they will do it again, each time slightly further than the last, each time more confident in the precedent you established, with that one small yes that cost you nothing in the moment and everything over time. The second question in this category is the honesty disguise. Someone looks at you and says, "Can I be honest with you?" And you say yes, every time, almost without thinking. Because what kind of person refuses honesty? The word itself is a disarming device. By agreeing to receive it, you have lowered your defenses before you know what is coming. Watch the pattern across your life. The person who says, "Can I be honest with you?" almost never follows it with something that builds you. They follow it with doubt, with criticism, with something that slows you down or makes you smaller. And they do all of this from behind the shield of the word honest. You cannot be upset with them. They were just telling the truth. Except they were telling their perspective, and they weaponized one word to make that perspective unchallengeable before it arrived. Real honesty does not need a preamble. The people who genuinely have your interests at heart simply say the difficult thing because they trust you to receive it. The preamble is the tell. It announces that what follows would not survive without the armor the preamble provides. Remove the armor, and what remains is an opinion dressed as care. Both of these questions share the same structure. They establish a frame before you have chosen to enter it. And the moment you accept the frame, through the retroactive yes, through the lowered defenses, the negotiating table is set, on their terms. Part 2. The weight transfer. Some questions do not take something from you. They put something on you. The first category of questions extracts your agreement or your guard. The second category operates differently. It does not take something from you in the moment. It transfers something onto you, a weight that follows you long after the conversation has ended, often without you recognizing when you picked it up. The third question is the decision transfer. Someone comes to you with a problem, a crossroads, a choice they cannot make, a situation they lay out with the expression of someone who trusts your judgment above their own. And they ask, "What would you do if you were me?" You answer, "Of course," because it feels like respect. You think carefully. You give them your honest recommendation. But here is what actually happened in that exchange. That person had a decision to carry, and they have just transferred a portion of it onto your shoulders. Because if they follow your advice and it works, the credit belongs to them. They made the right call. Your name disappears. But if they follow your advice and it fails, your name is the first thing that returns. You told me to do this. You said this was the right move. You have put your fingerprints on a decision you had no power to control. And fingerprints, as Machiavelli would note, are a form of evidence. Sometimes the person asking is not confused at all. They have already decided, but they want another name attached to the outcome in case it collapses, a backup, someone to absorb the weight if the weight becomes too heavy. By answering "What would you do?" you volunteer for that role without knowing you auditioned. Machiavelli wrote, that a prince must always take counsel, but only when he wishes, not when others wish it. The moment you prescribe a path for another person's life, you inherit the consequences of that path without any of the control. The correct response is not to withhold care. It is to return the decision to the person whose decision it actually is. What are you leaning toward? What does your instinct say? These are not deflections. They are acts of respect that also happen to protect you from carrying weight that was never yours. The fourth question is the source hunt. You confront someone about something they did, something you know, information that contradicts who they claim to be, and instead of addressing what you said, they pivot immediately to, who told you that? In 4 words, they have redirected the entire confrontation. You are no longer discussing what they did. You are now defending how you found out. And if you give them a name, if you answer, you have done 2 things simultaneously. You have betrayed the person who trusted you with that information, and you have given your opponent a target, someone to discredit, to isolate, to cut off, so that the flow of truth stops and they can go back to operating without scrutiny. Watch what happens in every confrontation where someone pivots to the source rather than the substance. The original issue never returns. The conversation becomes entirely about the information's provenance, and the person whose behavior was in question emerges having successfully avoided accounting for it. Your confrontation has become their opportunity. He who deceives, Machiavelli wrote, will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. The source hunt is the mechanism by which a confrontation gets turned against the confronter. The people who bring you truth are rare. They are assets. And the question who told you that exists for one purpose: to identify and eliminate those assets so that you go blind and stay blind. Both of these questions place something on you that was never yours to carry. The consequences of someone else's decision and the exposure of someone who trusted you. The negotiating table in both cases is designed to leave you holding more than you arrived with. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, the ideas that don't get softened, the ones that actually ask something of you, subscribe to Wise Daily. That's what we're here for. Part 3, the 5 questions. There is a 5th question that sits beneath the other 4. Not one of them in sequence, but the question that makes all 4 of them possible. Machiavelli would have called it the master question, the one that, once answered, opens every door the other 4 need to walk through. Someone looks at you in a moment that feels warm and significant, and they say, "You trust me, right?" And everything in you wants to say yes, because saying no feels like an accusation. It feels like you are calling them a liar. It feels like you are damaging the relationship by withholding this one simple word they are asking for. So you say it, "Of course I trust you." And the gates open, all of them. Because once you have declared trust, once you have handed over that word on demand, you have locked yourself into a position where questioning anything they do next makes you the contradiction. You said you trusted them, so when they act first and ask for retroactive permission, you cannot push back without confirming that your trust was never real. When they ask to be honest with you and say something that diminishes you, you have to absorb it. You trusted them. When they transfer their decision onto your shoulders, you carry it, because your trust implied you believed they were acting in good faith. When they deflect your confrontation by asking for your source, you feel the pull to give it, because you trusted them. And now that pull has a name they gave it. One word, in one moment, became the mechanism for every extraction that followed. The 5 questions, named with their mechanisms and the correct response to each. You don't mind, right? The retroactive permission trap. It manufactures consent for a decision already made, the correct response. I would have preferred you ask me first. Can I be honest with you? The honesty disguise. It lowers your defenses before the strike arrives. The correct response. You can say what you want. I'll decide what I do with it. What would you do if you were me? The decision transfer. It attaches your name to a choice you cannot control. The correct response. What are you leaning toward? Let them own it. Who told you that? The source hunt. It redirects the confrontation and eliminates the people who tell you the truth. The correct response. It doesn't matter how I found out. Is it true? You trust me, right? The master question. It pre-authorizes every future extraction. The correct response. I pay attention to what people do. That last response is the most important sentence in this entire script, not because it is clever, because it is true, and because it refuses the binary. You are not saying you distrust them. You are saying that trust is not a declaration. It is a conclusion, arrived at through observation over time, through the accumulation of evidence that the person in front of you is who they say they are. The people who have genuinely earned your trust do not ask for it. Their behavior already built it. Trust that is real does not need a declaration. It exists in what someone does consistently across months and years. The question, you trust me, right, is only asked by people who need the words, because their actions have not been sufficient. They need you to say it because they cannot show it. And the moment you say it, you have given them immunity, a shield they hold up every time their behavior falls short of what they promised. The question is never just a question. It is the opening move of a negotiation you have not yet decided to enter. The answer is never just information. It is a position you have chosen to surrender. The pause between them, that single beat of silence, is the only place your power actually lives. Part 4. The space between. There is a moment that most people have never been taught to inhabit. It is the space between the question and the answer. The beat of silence in which the question has arrived, but you have not yet responded. It is the briefest of moments, and it is where everything is decided. Most people move through that space without stopping. The question arrives and the answer follows automatically, because that is what they were trained to do. The question is a cue. The answer is the conditioned response. And in that automaticity, every negotiating table in this script gets set, every door gets opened, every piece of weight gets transferred, not through force, but through the simple absence of a pause. Machiavelli was not describing manipulation when he observed these patterns. He was describing the mechanics of attention. The person who understands what a question is actually doing, not just what it appears to be asking, is not operating with suspicion. They are operating with precision. They are reading the table before they decide whether to sit down at it. I want to say something here about what this is not. This is not a framework for suspicion. Some of the people in your life have built trust through years of consistent conduct, through the slow accumulation of evidence that means the relationship itself is the answer. What this framework is for is the other category. The people whose questions consistently arrive slightly ahead of the behavior that would justify them. Jung wrote, in his later work, that the most important capacity a person can develop is the ability to distinguish between what belongs to them and what has been placed on them by someone else. Machiavelli arrived at the same conclusion through a completely different route. The prince who cannot identify what is being transferred in a conversation cannot protect what is actually his. Build the pause. Starting today, when one of these 5 questions arrives, do not Do not answer on reflex. Let one beat pass. Ask what this question is opening and whether you choose to enter it. Sometimes the answer is yes. The relationship is worth it. The question is fair, and the honest response is the right one. But make it a choice, not a habit. Because the difference between someone who leaves every conversation having given more than they intended and someone who leaves with their position intact is not intelligence or warmth. It is that one person has learned to inhabit the space between the question and the answer, and the other person never knew it was there. The question is never just a question. It is an offer, and you are always allowed to decline. Most of us move through our lives answering every question that arrives with the same automatic compliance we learned as children, because the training that made us responsive also made us readable. The question arrives, the answer follows, and something leaves with it that we did not intend to give. We do not notice it in the moment. We notice it weeks later, when the weight is already settled on our shoulders, when the trust we declared is being used as a shield against our own perception, when the source we named has been quietly eliminated. The question is never just a question. It is an offer, and you are always allowed to decline. Have you felt the moment after answering a question when you knew you had given too much? If that recognition landed, type "I guard my answers" in the comments, not for me, but for you. And if this video gave you something real, please like it, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Wise Daily. Every video on this channel is built to give you one thing: the philosophical tools to live with more power, more clarity, and more intention. We'll see you in the next one. Machiavelli showed us the mechanics of the questions we answer without thinking. But there is a philosopher who asked what happens when you turn those same mechanics on yourself. When the question you stop answering automatically is not someone else's, but your own. That philosopher is Marcus Aurelius. And what he discovered about the power of refusing to answer your own worst instincts is the subject of our next video.